بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالعلم وزين أخلاقنا بالحلم وافتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. ثم أما بعد. Welcome to part 2 of this presentation, financial stability for Muslims in the US. And here is the topic that we stopped on yesterday. We finished the different ways of Islamic modes of finance. We discussed them briefly. And the next topic is halal stock market, different options for investors. There are some general guidelines that have to be taken into consideration. We need to know that when you hold a stock, it means that you are one of the owners of that company. When you hold a stock, you are one of the owners of that company. So it goes without saying that you have to make sure that or the core business of that company is a halal one. If you hold a stock of Chase, for example, or Capital One, although it is a stock, I know, but it's not halal because the core business of that company is not a halal one. If it is not a stock, then stay away from it, because it could be bonds, and bond actually means interest-bearing loan. You lend the federal government a certain amount of money. You hold a bond of $5,000. It means that you are lending Uncle Sam $5,000. Your principal is guaranteed, and your profit, which is interest, is guaranteed as well. So bonds, to start with, is not an option. And in some stock markets, including the US one, there are a lot of, they call them financial instruments, adawat maliyya. Okay, financial instruments means instrument that you trade in, but in most cases, 99.9%, they do not reflect any actual real value. They are not reflecting any commodity, any merchandise, not even a service. Okay, they could be derivatives, they could be options, and some other financial instruments in which you need to stay away from. Why you should stay away from? Because Islamic finance actually is not a myth, it's not a secret. You trade, you produce, you buy, you sell, you commission in something that is really tangible, something that has a value, and that value actually has to be beneficial to the society at large, and it has to be a Sharia compliant one. If you hold a financial instrument that is not reflected or is not backed up by any commodity or any service or any merchandise, then what are you owning? What are you trading in? That is unfortunately one of the reasons behind the severe financial crisis that we experienced here back in 2008, 2009, all the way until 2010. A lot of financial instruments in the market do not reflect any actual real value. And people actually make just profit out of nothing, and they make money out of nothing, in addition to different reasons as well. So what are the different instruments that you need to avoid? One of them, for example, is called the CDO, or the collateralized debt obligation. Collateralized debt obligation. It's really hard even for specialists to understand the mechanism. How do these instruments work, and how can people actually make profit out of them? It really takes time to even understand how do they work. Look at this example, CDO, or the collateralized debt obligation. It's a financial product or a type of structured asset-backed securities whose value and payments are derived from a portfolio of a fixed income guaranteed from underlying assets, commodities, stocks, residential mortgage, commercial, real estate, loan, or bonds. What did you understand? What did you understand?
It's a basket.
What's that?
Basket. There's a basket carrying all this stuff.
Type. When you own a CDO, what are you owning exactly?
You own everything. Nothing.
That is the answer actually. You own nothing, because the CDO actually is just a connection between that financial instrument and, as the brother said, like a basket of different financial instruments. The value of the CDO is derived from the value of other instrument, but it's not an actual real stock. It does not reflect by itself. If you just disconnect it from that basket, actually it means nothing. It's worth absolutely nothing. So you are trading in something that you do not know what are you trading in. When I sell an iPhone, I know that this is a commodity, brings some benefit to the buyer. So I deserve the $10 out of selling that the iPhone. But when I sell or trade or even commission in CDO, I own nothing. Of course, treasuries, securities, or any kind of bonds, regardless of the maturity of the bond, whether it is 6 months or 5 years, all these technicalities are absolutely irrelevant to the permissibility status of this financial instrument. Stay away from bonds, because bond actually is a straightforward interest-bearing loan. You lend money to the government, you get your money back plus profit, and that profit is absolutely interest. Derivatives, again, are kind of instruments that do not have an independent value by themselves. Their value is derived from other instruments. A good example for that is what is called the credit default swap. Credit default swap, CDS. Let's read about CDS. It's a credit derivative contract between two counterparties. The buyer makes periodic payment to the seller. And in return receives a payoff in an underlying financial instrument's default. What means, well, let me continue. Contracts have been compared with insurance because the buyer pays a premium and in return receives a sum of money if one of the specific events occur. So when you hold a CDS, you just keep praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those companies to lose. If they lose, you make money. If they make profit, you lose. As simple as that. And as it is mentioned here, it's a kind of insurance, or it's similar to insurance because you keep paying monthly payment to keep the CDS valid and just waiting for the disaster to happen in order for you to make some profit. But the CDS itself does not have a value. Leverage fractional reserve. When you have you ever traded in Forex? Are you familiar with Forex? Forex actually is a abbreviation of foreign currency, and it's an online business. You just download an app and you get some training, some courses. I mean, you take on how to run the Forex business. Simply, actually, it's a currency exchange. Now, the issue here is that if you go with the leverage fraction reserve, it means that you deal with a commissioner, with a broker, like a third party, and that third party actually stipulates that all the transactions have to be done through him. Not only that, you deposit actual real $1,000 and you get a line of credit. You get a line of credit that is 99% more than what you have deposited. And that's actually not a real money. It's just like non-existing money. So you deposit $1,000 and you get a line of credit up to $100,000. And you start trading and buying and selling and making profit and incurring loss and on and on. Everything has to be done through that third party, that commissioner. And the concern that we have is that you are dealing with a non-existing money. Line of credit means that you are authorized to use, in trading, up to $100,000, in which only 1,000 are actual real money that you have deposited, but the rest of the money actually just a line of credit. And there is no guarantee whatsoever that the broker, the one who is giving you that line of credit, does have an actual real money, $99,000. It's just a line of credit, digital money as they say nowadays. It goes without saying that when it comes to currency exchange, there are very strict rules and regulations that have been set by the Prophet ﷺ himself. Definitely it has to be an actual real money, and there must be like a mutual submission. I give you American dollars, you give me a Kuwaiti dinar on the spot. You cannot take the money and just bring me the Kuwaiti dinar tomorrow. مثلا بمثل يدا بيدها أوها. فإذا اختلفت هذه الأصناف فبيعوا كيف شئتم إذا كان يدا بيد. If the items are not similar, are not identical, then definitely equality is not requested. However, mutual submission actually is a must. When we say mutual submission, it means actual, real, tangible money. And it's not the case when it comes to leverage, fractional reserve. This actually does not mean that Forex business is haram, by the way. It's not. Actually, my son, 24 years old, he does have a Forex business. And I told him from the beginning, Baba, if you want to proceed with this business, that's fine. Make sure you do not leverage. Okay, you do not take a line of credit and start, doing business in a digital money. Okay, you have $5,000, actual real cash money. You deposit, you open an account, and you start trading within those 5,000. No more and no less. Even when it comes to stocks, not every single stock is a halal by default. As I said in the beginning, that stock actually has to belong to a business or a company in which its core business is a halal one. Okay? If you hold a stock belongs to Walmart, okay, that's halal because Walmart actually is a retail store. Yes, they do have some haram items here and there, but overall speaking, if you want to compare Walmart to a conventional bank, you cannot say that they are the same. Conventional banking actually is a pure haram business. Mortgage company is a pure haram business. I mean, their main job is to lend with interest. If someone holds like stocks to companies working obscene business or gambling or casinos or you name it, well, that's a stock, I know, but it belongs to haram business. So number one, you have to make sure that that stock that you trade in belongs to a halal business. And the bad news here is that the fact that that stock belongs to halal business is not enough. It's not. You need to dig in depth in order for your investment to be a Sharia compliant one and ask for 3 different factors to determine how permissible, how allowable trading in that particular stock is. So obscene, alcoholic, tobacco, gambling, etc., that is not allowed. Okay. Stocks with high debt asset ratio, they call it. So even Walmart stock, which is a halal one, like by default, it might be haram in certain cases. You need to ask about 3 different things: the possibility of having haram investment, possibility of having haram investment, haram assets, and they call it debt asset or high debt asset ratio. What does haram investment mean? It means that companies in general, whenever they have actual real money, they do not like to jeopardize the money or to put it in actual business. They put it aside and they open just a saving account and they start generating interest. Okay, so the stock that's worth in the market $100, it might be $90 actual real assets, tangible assets, versus $10 cash money coming from interest. Well, that's a problem. So the instrument itself or the stock is problematic. Why? Because it does not reflect actual real commodity. It has a certain percentage of cash money. So when you trade, okay, when you buy and sell and you make money, you are actually selling and trading in money and making profit out of that, and that is not allowed. So that's the first scenario, which is the haram investment. And the second thing is the haram asset. Haram asset means, how do you know how much is the percentage of haram items in Walmart? Is it 3%? Is it 30%? Do you have any data? You do not have any. So you need to dig in depth and just find out how much is the haram percentage in that stock. And the third thing is stock to, they call it high debt asset ratio. High debt asset ratio means companies, again, do not like to use their own money. They put it aside in a saving account and they generate interest. And they go to the closest bank and they apply for investment loan, for a business loan. They borrow money for maybe 5-7% interest. They make 20% profit. They pay off that 7 or 5%, to the bank, and they keep the rest. The issue here is that some companies actually they take it to the extreme. They keep just borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, so much so that the stock at a certain point might reflect 40% actual real asset versus 60% money. So what you are trading in actually in the market is not a stock. It is money. So trading and making profit out of that, of course, is not allowed, because you are like selling money for money with inequality. Okay, and that's not allowed. Now, who is the right person to answer these questions? Walmart stock. How much haram investment? How much haram asset? And how is the debt asset ratio? You can refer up to a certain limit to what is called in the US business, in the US industry, socially responsible investing companies. Or sometimes they call themselves ethically responsible investing companies. Some of them actually have their own software. They develop a certain software in which they run the portfolio that you have, and they can tell you, oh, this one actually is having 30% debt, and this one have 5%. So drop this one and go with this one. This one has 45% haram investment, okay, versus only. So I mean, you cannot consider this one, and on and on. And some of them actually they do it manually. You share your portfolio with them. They do their own research, and they go to certain database online, usually public record. They investigate and send you a report, or that this kind of industry, stay away from it. Financial one, for example, and this one actually is fine. This one, and on and on. So you can refer to those socially responsible investing companies for more peace of mind that your investment is as halal as as possible, to the utmost of your ability. You did your own homework, you did your own investigation, and you have a peace of mind that this is the best I can do. In the US, we have a ZAD fund. Maybe it is the best, wallahu alam, among those socially responsible companies. Amana fund, it's not as good as a ZAD. Islamic Dow Jones, nowadays it's called Iman Fund. They changed their name to Iman Fund. Some people actually prefer to roll over their 401k, by the way. And instead of keeping your 401k with Fidelity, if you want to have a peace of mind, you just roll over to any of these companies. Supposedly they know their business very well. They are not in the same level of understanding the fiqh concept behind investment. Again, to the best of my knowledge, a ZAD fund is the best. Recently, actually, they have formed a Sharia advisory board. One of them is Dr. Abdul Bari Mashal. You know him, maybe, right? He prays here. I mean, he attends this masjid here usually. He's like one of the authorities. Maybe like his name is well known in the Middle East more than in the US. But mashallah, he's one of the most specialized and most like one of the authorities in this particular field, which is investment and Islamic finance. So as that fund actually do have Sharia advisory board, and I assume that the Sharia advisory board is heavily involved in like checking and auditing, the actual performance of the companies. Just an example of halal industries. When you see, for example, in your portfolio, John Smith Brothers, you do not know, who's John Smith and what kind of business they have. Okay, but if you limit yourself, for example, to these fields, these industries, like electric utility, electrical equipment, environmental, you name it, air transport, auto part, and on and on. You see the list here: power, property management, water utility, oil and gas. All these industries are halal by default, unless otherwise proven. Okay, where does otherwise come from? Again, I want you to remember that haram investment, haram assets, high debt asset ratio. Haram investment, haram assets, high debt asset ratio. If it is 401k, I would say most of the cases actually you do have a word to say. You can choose what portfolio you prefer. If it is 529 or any other account, for example, saving, or for the education of your kids, if it is an individual retirement account, you definitely have a word to say. Okay, word to say. So you can choose, the portfolio or the industry or the industries that you are more comfortable with. If that is the case, then limit yourself to whatever is halal by default. Again, unless otherwise proven. Generally speaking, in 401k, you will be given one of those 5 options. Skip 1 and 2 because the first one actually is just like a certificate of deposit, saving account, traditional interest-bearing investment. It's not an option for you. They have another option called a balanced fund. Like most cases, 50-50. 50% stocks and 50% otherwise, bonds and derivatives and you name it. So that's not an option. Exclusive stock fund is an option, again, as long as you consider the 3 different factors. How much is the haram investment? How much is the haram assets? How much is the debt asset ratio? Is it high or low? And whether those stocks actually are like local within the US or international, or limit yourself to the stocks if the company that you work for doesn't make any difference. At the end of the day, you invest only and only in stocks. If they give you the option, if they give you that, like your employer, if it is an option for you to roll over to any of those socially responsible or Islamic mutual fund companies, I would highly recommend that you do so. I would highly recommend that you do so. Maybe their management fees is higher a little bit, maybe 1 or 2% higher, but again, it gives you a peace of mind. Okay, you make sure that your investment in your 401k or whatever pension plan you have is as halal as possible. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Be conscious to Allah as much as you can. So if you can, go ahead and do it. When it comes to 529 for the education of your kids, or if it is, for example, health saving account. Have you heard about health saving account? Health saving account. It's your call. You have different options. You can just pick the portfolio that you feel more comfortable with. If you want to limit yourself to stocks belongs to a certain industry, okay? You limit yourself with transportation, with education, with IT, with software. I mean, something that is halal in nature. You will be having a peace of mind. So you have more flexibility when it comes to accounts, like individual accounts, like individual retirement account, 520, 529. Annuity, if there is any halal option. I'm not sure if there is a halal annuity. But when it comes to 401k, usually it's a collective or like a pool of investment in which it's not your call to make a decision. I mean, you can maybe lobby for that. Maybe you can put some pressure on the investment company or the employer to change their policy a little bit. But it's not exclusively your decision where your money should be invested in. So always remember that فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم. فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم. إذا أمرتكم بأمر فأتوا منه ما استطعتم. Be conscious to Allah as much as you can. If you are positive 100% that your 401k, the current one, does have 10% haram or 20% and you cannot stop it, just keep it as is. Just keep it as is. Whenever you receive your money, whenever you turn 59 or 60 or 65 years old, then you can just get rid of that haram percentage and keep the rest for yourself. But do not compromise your 401k because of the haram that you cannot get rid of. I think we already discussed student loans in different presentation. However, to make it brief, before we even entertain the idea of applying for a student's loan, we need to educate our kids, our students, that there are some other halal sources of funding. Okay, let's train our kids, our children, to be like more active and more cautious when it comes to haram and halal. Wallahi, it's really unfortunate to say that millions of dollars are returned unclaimed to the federal government because students are not applying for financial aid and scholarship. So train your kids and let them just stay in front of Sheikh Google and ask for half an hour, for one hour or 2 hours, searching for halal sources of funding. Okay, there are a lot of different financial aids, scholarships, grants, work study. Sometimes you can even work for the department that you are majoring in the university. So even before we discuss and sit down and discuss the possibility or the permissibility of applying for a student loan, let's do our best finding halal by default sources of funding, sponsoring their study. If all these halal by default are not available enough, financial aid, scholarships, financial aids, grants, and work study, then going with the subsidized loan would be permissible. But we have to go in order. Why we have to go in order? Because the subsidized loan, I mean, just to understand the concept behind it, it's only for the undergrad students. If you are a graduate student, you cannot apply for subsidized loan. And it's only for those who are financially challenged. So you need to prove eligibility to apply and to be approved for subsidized loan. Most importantly, it's an interest-free loan during your study. So when you get the money, you keep just borrowing, zero interest. However, you are not expected, you are actually requested, you are required to pay off the loan in full within 6 months after your graduation. Okay. In reality, it's close to impossible. I mean, if you have borrowed $40,000 throughout 4 years, I mean, how could you pay $40,000 in 6 months? So you're gonna end up paying interest. If you default, if you did not pay in full, then the subsidized loan will be counted as unsubsidized loan, and they will backdate it from the very first day of the very first loan that you have taken. They will start like backdating it and just counting interest from that date. So you're going to end up with having an interest-bearing loan. However, we need to consider here that higher education actually is a legitimate need. Higher education is a legitimate need, whether it is undergrad or graduate studies. It doesn't make any sense that people from all over the world coming and sometimes even migrating to the US for education purposes, and they go back home with a PhD or master's from America, from the US. It's very prestigious, right? So it doesn't make any sense that people are coming from all over the world studying here, and Muslims living in the US are deprived from getting their education because there is no source of funding or sponsorship for their study. This is from one side. From the other side, this is a country of education. And the more academic qualification we have, the more the possibility of being involved in the system and making positive change. And that's actually a part of our responsibility and duty, is to positively direct the society toward what we believe is more ethical and more pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to conclude, higher education is a legitimate need. Now, if that need could be achieved, could be met through a halal way, that would be fine, alhamdulillah. But if not, then whatever it takes to achieve and to fulfill that legitimate need would be counted from a pure fiqh perspective, would be counted as a necessity. This is the base where MJ actually did allow borrowing with interest, and I want you to pay attention to that. We did actually issue a fatwa 4 or 5 years ago that interest-bearing loan for education purposes is permissible if this is the only way of sponsoring a student's study. And again, we have to go in order. You go first of all with the halal by default resources, financial aid, scholarship, work study, grants. If not, then you go with subsidized loan if you are undergraduate students and you are eligible. If not, then you can go with the subsidized loan. Where did we get it from? Just, the unsubsidized loan actually is an interest-bearing loan from day one. That's the difference between the subsidized and the unsubsidized one. The unsubsidized loan is an interest-bearing loan from day one, and it does not require any financial eligibility. Anyone can apply for it. So the riba actually is straightforward. When you take a unsubsidized loan, you are getting involved in interest-bearing loan period from day one. That's why we said you go with the subsidized one. If it is not possible, if not doable, not insufficient, then you can go with the unsubsidized one. Here is the definition of al-darura, which is a very legitimate and sound definition. ما يلحق المكلف ضرر بتركه ولا يقوم غيره مقامه. I want you to remember that higher education is a legitimate need. It's not a necessity. It's not a necessity. I mean, we can live without it, but it is a legitimate need. However, that legitimate need sometimes, in some cases, for some students, could not be achieved without borrowing with interest. So borrowing with interest or taking unsubsidized loan would be interpreted as necessity. It is like irreplaceable matter in which people get harmed whenever it is absent. That's the ضرورة. If you want to be more accurate, ما يلحق المكلف ضرر بتركه. It is an irreplaceable matter in which losing it actually or not having it would cause harm to people. So not having sufficient fund is a problem. I mean, someone is pursuing maybe master's or PhD all the way in the middle. There was no source of income. There was no source of funding for his study. Either, I mean, he has two options: either to borrow with interest or just to quit and go somewhere else. Just quit the whole program and just go work, somewhere else. In this particular scenario, borrowing with interest actually would be permitted, and it will be interpreted as necessity. This is actually the base where MJ actually issued its fatwa. You can go to our website and just read the fatwa in full. But what I have said actually is the summary of the fatwa. I know that you have a lot of questions, so I will. This will be the last topic, and inshallah I will open the floor for question and answer. Life insurance actually is a kind of commercial insurance. Okay, commercial insurance means that you contract a mutual insurance company, or just a regular or stock-based insurance company. It could be, the product that you buy could be life insurance, it could be health insurance, it could be liability insurance for your car, it could be home insurance, whatever the policy you buy. So basically there is no significant difference between life insurance from one side and other kind of insurance, business insurance or like personal insurance or home insurance or whatever. This is one thing. The other thing, there is a mainstream fatwa nowadays. There is a mainstream fatwa regarding insurance. I would say there is a semi-even unanimity between contemporary scholars and different fiqh councils regarding the prohibition of any kind of commercial insurance. Okay. And by the way, what I will be saying now is not my personal opinion. I'm just now narrating, just establishing a fact that this is the mainstream fatwa. And I was following that mainstream fatwa for the last 30 years of my life, 30 years. Recently I changed my mind. But before I share with you my personal ijtihad, let me just go with the mainstream fatwa. Scholars nowadays, fiqh councils and different reputable scholars, they make a comparison between government-based insurance and a mutual insurance from one side versus commercial insurance from the other side. They said that any kind of government-based insurance is halal by default, because the reason behind it is to provide financial security or like social security or financial stability for people who are financially challenged. Okay? So any kind of ambiguity, any kind of uncertainty, which means that you pay and you do not know what you will be getting in return. You pay and you do not know whether or not you will be compensated later on. They said that all these different defects, all these different glitches or defects in the contract are okay, because basically the contract itself actually is not for-profit contract. It's not for-profit contract. So when the government, for example, in the U.S. establishes a social security system, they are not looking forward to make a profit out of it, right? So based on that, any kind of defects in that contract would be overlooked because of the noble cause behind that agreement. You pay money and you get compensated whenever an unfortunate incident happens. They said it is not the case. It is not the case when it comes to commercial insurance. Commercial insurance, actually, it is for-profit business. And always there is a conflict of interest between the insured or the customer and the insurer or the company. The company itself would love to take as much money as possible and to give you as less as possible. Okay, and your interest is to pay as less as possible and to get compensated as much as possible. So because of that conflict of interest, the way that we evaluate commercial insurance actually should be different. If you follow with me, they said that commercial insurance is prohibited for the following, okay, because of the gharar, uncertainty, and because of the ambiguity. Gharar means that you pay you pay the premium every single month, okay, to the car insurance company. Okay, you have a liability insurance or full coverage. You do not know whether or not you will be paid back. Alhamdulillah, sometimes you keep driving for 10, 15 years with no car accident. So you pay and you do not know the return on investment, what you will be getting in return. That's a kind of ambiguity, gharar, uncertainty. And even if you have a health insurance, you know as a human that you will get sick one day. I mean, you would definitely benefit from that, health insurance, okay, in a way or another. You do not know how much you will be compensated. It might be like one visit to the doctor for $50. It could be 6 months in the hospital for $500,000. So you do not know, I mean, you know for sure that you will be benefiting from that insurance, but you do not know the actual compensation, how much it will be. That's the technical difference between al-jahala and al-gharar. Al-gharar ما لا يعلم حصوله من عدمه وللجهالة ما علم حصوله وجهلت صفته. They said, on top of that, if you are talking life insurance, then there is a riba. You pay less and you get more. You pay only $150 per month to the life insurance company, and in case of death, whenever you pass away, your inheritors will be receiving $500,000 or $1 million, and that's riba. You pay less and you get more for no legitimate justification for that huge compensation or payment that you receive, or the insurance benefit that you receive. I mean, you did nothing to deserve that money. They said life insurance could be permitted if it is included in a valid agreement. You work for a company and they offer you a package. I mean, you get a monthly salary or bi-weekly check, right? You receive like 2 weeks paid vacation, round the trip. I mean, if you want to travel overseas, health insurance, they said that if the life insurance is included in a legitimate contract or agreement, it could be overlooked based on like a fiqh maxim, يغتفر في التابع ما لا يغتفر في غيره, which means that a void or invalid transaction could be overlooked if it is included, if it's not independent by itself, which means that you are not signing an agreement with the insurance company. It comes as a part of the package, as a part of the compensation that you receive from your employer. If that is the case, then it could be overlooked according to the mainstream fatwa. They said, although commercial insurance is haram, but there are certain cases where desperate need has to be considered. Health insurance, especially for those who are living in the West, where healthcare is extremely unaffordable and extremely expensive. I mean, we cannot pay for our health insurance, healthcare without having, or the vast majority of us. Business insurance as needed. Liability insurance, you cannot drive your car without having an insurance. House insurance, if you live in a flood zone, like someone like me living in Houston, Texas, it's now under Hurricane Harvey. It started actually raining severely there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for people there. Roadside assistance and warranty. They said that all these different kinds of insurance are permitted as needed, only. Permitted by default, again according to the mainstream fatwa. Permitted by default, Social Security, supplemental social income, Medicare and Medicaid, and any kind of government-based government-based insurance. Now, this actually was my opinion for the last 30 years. And then recently, I started like researching and reading more about insurance as a concept. I get a copy from the book of Sheikh Mustafa al-Zarqa. Sheikh Mustafa al-Zarqa, rahmatullah alayhi, was the top authority in the Hanafi school of thought during his lifetime. And since day one, since the back in the 1950s and 60s, when the insurance was discussed on a scholarly level, in different fiqh councils, he was opposing all fiqh councils at that time. And he made himself clear from the beginning that insurance is halal by default. Any kind of insurance is halal by default. So what I have done actually as a student of knowledge, I went to his book and I have read it word by word, sentence by sentence. Not only one time, but I have read it twice. And subhanAllah, I found out that what he mentioned a while ago makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Let me tell you why. Do you know the difference between bilateral contracts versus unilateral contracts? Do you know the difference? Bilateral contracts means two-sided agreement. Two-sided agreement. Okay? That's called in business bilateral agreement. It's a contract between two different parties with a certain commitment from each side. If you do this, you will get that. If not, then you will not get it. That's called bilateral agreement. Are we following here? Now, versus the other one, which is the unilateral agreement. Unilateral agreement actually is a one-sided agreement. Like, for example, when the government gives financial aid to those who are under poverty line. They receive food stamp or any kind of financial or non-financial, monetary or non-monetary support. This is actually a unilateral agreement. It's just a commitment from one side. Because of your poverty, because of your financial challenges, I will be providing you for such and such because you live in my country here. That is the unilateral agreement. Having said that, do you think, look at those examples. Do you think that a social security is a bilateral agreement or unilateral agreement? Unilateral agreement. It's not bilateral agreement. Unilateral agreement means that every single individual lives in the US in case of turning 60 years old or 65, or in case of death or in case of disability, then he himself or his inheritors will be eligible for a certain compensation from the company because only and only he lives in this society. Is it the case? Is it the case? No. It's not. Thank you. If you do not have a social security account, if you do not pay to the federal government certain amount as a social security, if it is not deducted from your paycheck, you cannot get social security compensation in case, Allah forbids, of death or disability, or even when you when you reach the age of retirement. Can you get any Medicaid or Medicare support without being a part of this system? Can you? Let's go with the Medicare. Now, every single one here works. A certain amount has to be deducted from your check. Is that correct? Yes. Part of it goes to the federal government as tax. Part of it goes to the Social Security. Part of it goes to the Medicare. In order for you to benefit from the Medicare, you have to be a part of the system. You have to pay a certain amount to be eligible to get certain compensation. Is that correct? So all these different systems, well, let's skip the Medicaid now. All these different systems actually, do they belong to bilateral? I mean, are they bilateral agreements or unilateral agreements? Bilateral. Right. Now, let's make a very quick comparison between this system here, the government-based one, and any kind of commercial or mutual insurance. Okay, Northwestern Life Insurance Company. What kind of business they have? What kind of business they have? They say to you, listen, if you give me $150 every single month, I will secure $1 million for you Yeah, for you. If you turn 80 years old, or otherwise, I'll give your inheritors, your wife and your kids. If you pass away within those 20 years, okay, you just rest in peace. I will take care of your family. You just give me $150 every month, and I will give your family members a check of $1 million. Is this a bilateral agreement or unilateral agreement? Bilateral. And we said that the Social Security and the Medicare and whatever government-based insurance are bilateral agreements. Now, my question to you all: what is the technical or the fiqh difference between this system? Let's make it simple. Let's compare Social Security and life insurance. What's the difference? Can you elaborate more?
Social Security is not profit-based system, but the life insurance and all other alternatives are based on profit, as you just mentioned.
So, do you want to say that profit motive is haram? So, can we say that this agreement is haram because one of the two contracting parties is aiming, a profit?
No, but I mean.
I'm sorry, I'm not putting you in the spot. It's just a discussion. I mean, I just want to understand where are we coming from.
Yeah.
So, do you want to say that profit motive is haram?
Yeah, what I want to say, according to what I understood from you, is not being profit motivated is what made Social Security acceptable. So
This is, yeah.
What was the exception for Social Security?
Well,
to be acceptable?
this is what the mainstream opinion is. They said that Social Security is not aiming profit. And by the way, this is not correct. It's not correct. I mean, if you have some experience in the system in the U.S., you will definitely agree with me that the Medicare system is run by private companies. It's not run by the actual federal government. This is from one side. From the other side, Social Security actually does aim profit. I mean, how does the federal government pay the employees of the Social Security? From the profit that they make from the contribution. This is from one side. From the other side, the biggest life insurance company that covers up to 40% of life insurance policies in the U.S. is called Northwestern Life Insurance. Northwestern actually is a mutual company. It's not a stock-based. Do you know what does mean mutual company? Mutual company means that the profit of that company goes back to the insured, to the policyholders. Thank you, to the policyholders. You see. So back to the question again. What's the difference between Social Security and life insurance? In Social Security, it's a bilateral agreement. If you pay certain amount, you will be eligible to get certain compensation. And believe it or not, Social Security itself is a kind of life insurance. If you pass away, your inheritors will be getting certain amount of money for a certain period of time based on certain criteria and qualification. Is that correct? Yeah. What's the difference between Social Security Administration from one side and Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company? Okay. Social Security is telling you, give me $150 and I will give your inheritors like a paycheck, monthly payment of such and such. And Northwestern is saying, well, I will not be paying them monthly. I'll give them like a one-time payment of $1 million. Is there any difference from a fiqh perspective?
Social Security is mandated by the government. We cannot avoid paying the Social Security, whereas Northwestern we have an option to not to pay things.
What does this have to do with the permissibility of the agreement? Do you want to tell me that Social Security is haram, but because you are obligated by the government, that's why you pay? So if you do have the option to drop the Social Security, are you going to drop it?
I think that's what the mainstream was saying.
If you have the option of dropping your Social Security, are you going to drop it? And I want to hear an answer, yes or no. You would love to keep it because you're looking for financial stability for yourself and for your kids. So you love to have Social Security account. طيب. What else? Give me like any other reason or any other, I would say legitimate difference between the Social Security and the life insurance. تفضل.
Commercial insurance companies are making more riskier investments with their funds
Social Security makes investment. I mean, they do invest their money like in different way, and the life insurance companies do the same. This is from one side. From the other side, what does the risk involved in the investment of the saved money have to do with the permissibility of the transaction to start with? Now, we're not discussing how do they invest their money. We're discussing the concept itself. Is life insurance haram or halal? Once we agree it is haram, then the case is dismissed. Once it is halal, then we need to investigate more. How do they invest their money? But the way that they invest their money has nothing to do with the permissibility of the contract itself. If that makes sense.
So simply establishing equivalency between life insurance and social security is not enough. We need to examine whether the fundamental concept is
The fundamental concept, akhi, is the same. Both of them are bilateral agreement. If you pay, you get paid. If you are not a part of the social security, even if you pass away, even if you get involved in car accident, even if you get handicapped, they do not care about you. Why? Because you're not a part of the system. So it is a bilateral agreement. And the life insurance and any kind of commercial insurance is a bilateral agreement. Now, what I want to say is that if we insist in saying that social security is halal, then life insurance should be halal as well. And if we insist that social security is haram, then everything is haram. There is no base behind this differentiation to the best of my knowledge. Again, I mean, this is my ijtihad after 30 years. And based on that, I got my own life insurance policy of $1 million. My daughter was making a joke with me. Baba, please die. Please just leave us. We're going to get $1 million tax-free. So this is, I would say, like a very maybe isolated or even weird opinion. But it is supported, it is backed up by well-established scholars. And if I refer to Sheikh Mustafa Zarqa, rahmatullahi alayh, that would be enough. If I follow his fatwa and say, well, Sheikh Mustafa Zarqa says life insurance is halal, then actually I'm free of any responsibility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Believe it or not, Sheikh Abdullah ibn Mni'ah, hafidhahullah. Sheikh Abdullah ibn Mni'ah is a member of the Senior Scholars Council in Saudi Arabia, عضو هيئة كبار العلماء. He changed his mind 5 or 7 years ago. He said that all kinds of insurance are halal. So he turned to Sheikh Mustafa Zarqa's opinion. There are some other figures, like Sheikh Al-Khafif, one of the Al-Azhar ulama. He passed away a while ago, rahmatullahi alayh. He said the same. So long story short, the number of scholars who believe that life insurance and any kind of commercial insurance are little in number. However, this number actually is increasing. And I wholeheartedly believe that it's just a matter of time for even fiqh councils to like revisit their fatwa and to recognize the discussion that we get involved in, which is the fact that all contracts are bilateral. If you pay, you get paid. If you do not pay, then there is no base behind this differentiation between commercial insurance from one side and government-based insurance from the other side. This is to the best of my knowledge. Wallahu a'lam.
Do you mean to say that any agreement to violate is halal, even though like the money that is used like a gambling? It's like you are kind of like a betting, collecting money from million people.
Where is
Gamble on that one
yeah? Where is the gambling, akhi, coming from? Can you tell me?
You collect money from a lot of people. In the lottery, and one person gets money, other people don't get paid.
Social Security is the same.
Money to this contract, one person gets paid.
So Social Security is the same. Medicare is the same. They have like a pool, like a virtual pool of money in which millions of people, contribute in that pool of money with a clear-cut agreement. If you get sick, you will get this and that. If you pass away, you will get this and that. It's the same concept. I do not see any difference.
So first of all, that may mean that we may need to examine the legitimacy of Social Security as a viable and acceptable mode of transaction. And secondly,
Before we go to that point, I will be going with the mainstream fatwa who says that Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, supplemental social income, ضمان اجتماعي, whatever is government-based program is halal by default. because it is non-for-profit agreement. Now, I will be taking this part and just argue it back by saying, well, what's the difference between, I mean, if you say that Social Security is halal, then what's the difference between Social Security and life insurance?
But the purpose is not to simply engage in debate. The purpose is to find out what's right. And so if you're challenging the fundamental concept of acceptability of Social Security and Medicare, you're challenging, you're saying it is for profit. It's not for profit. You're saying it's not unilateral. It is bilateral. So you just undermine the legitimacy of the whole concept of Social Security. You can't then go back and say, well, since you allow this, we can allow this as well.
No, I'm not undermining it. I'm just discussing in a logical way the technical differences and the fiqh differences between the two different contracts. I'm not like like underestimating or like la samahullah downgrading like the way of thinking of others. I'm just asking a very simple question. If both of them are bilateral agreements, you pay, you get paid, then what's the difference? To the best of my knowledge, both of them actually are right, because the return on investment is well defined from the beginning. It is the social or the financial security. Okay, the product that I will be getting actually is well known for me. If I pass away today, tomorrow morning the insurance company will write a check of $1 million. And this is by itself is a product, and that product actually is well defined. It does not have to happen, but actually it's there. It is like standby. If I die, they will get money. If I do not, then at least, alhamdulillah, I know very well what will my family be getting in return when I pass away. It's the same when it comes to Social Security. I do have an account with the Social Security. If I get disabled, I will be getting such and such amount. If I pass away with the insurance company, I will be getting such and such amount. So it's exactly, to my knowledge, it's just identical. There is no difference. Sister in the back, go ahead.
Isn't insurance just, I'm probably going to pass it on, but just the Islamic concept of takful?
Takaful? Yeah, takaful.
The shared risk that a community comes together, all put money forward, and if one takes a loss, then the community covers that loss?
Well,
Takaful?
yeah, takaful, yeah.
Isn't that what insurance is?
Takaful actually means cooperation. And the takaful actually does exist in the Social Security, and it does exist in the life insurance. Life insurance is a takaful. And it doesn't make any difference if the insurance company is making profit out of that. I mean, why not? I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, they designate a certain amount of money and effort and expertise to run the life insurance system, and they make some profit. I mean, why not? صحتين وعافية مثل ما بقول أولادنا. Yes, man.
Would this be considered a business transaction, business partnership, customer client?
It's an agreement. I mean, you call it business, you call it for-profit, non-for-profit, it doesn't make any difference. It's an agreement. Clear, cut, well-defined agreement. You pay, I'm sorry? I'm not sure if I get your question. Share gain loss? No, it's different in nature. I mean, it's a bilateral agreement. There is no partnership here. There is a different kind of agreement. You contribute, okay, you subscribe to the system by paying a certain amount of money. You will be eligible for a certain compensation. It's not like a mode of finance. No, it's not. It's different.
You're getting something you didn't put in. My personal thing is, you're getting something you didn't put in, and you died, or something happened. You're getting something that you didn't put into it. Yes, the family's getting something that you didn't earn, put into it.
I'm not sure if I got your point. I'm sorry. Yeah, inshallah. وعليكم السلام. لا بس أعطيه لحظة. I want to understand what he said.
You said you have $1 million policy.
Right.
I'm quite sure you won't put in $1 million. I'm trying to understand your family will get something that you didn't put in. You were speaking earlier about shared gain.
No, there is no share gain, akhi. It's a different kind of agreement. I mean, there is there is no mode of finance involved here. We're not talking about like Islamic finance, murabaha and musharaka. We said that this is a bilateral agreement, subscription. You pay a certain amount of money. You get in return certain amount of money whenever a certain incident takes place. So it's different in nature.
They're just being allowed to invest your money. It's an agreement.
Well, I mean, if you want to call it, if you want to call it investment, you call it otherwise. It's up to you. It's an agreement. It's a bilateral agreement.
I think his issue is the payout is greater than what you put into it.
Which is fine. Which is fine. How much you pay to the Social Security? I pay maybe $57, and I will be getting in return maybe $1,500 every single month. So the inequality actually is there. What do you mean? Where does the riba come from? Where does the riba come from? Riba Khal Kareem comes when there is a loan agreement or when there is a sale agreement. And here actually there is no loan and there is no sale agreement. I mean, the only transactions that are subject to riba are the loan agreement, the loan contract, and the sale contract. Riba duyun wa riba al-buyu'. And there is no buyu' and there is no duyun. So it's different. Let me just take the sister. Yes, go ahead. Life insurance, yeah.
The Social Security is an obligation. You have to pay. You have to give pay the Social Security when you're working. The life insurance, it's not necessary. It's a choice. You can have life insurance. You cannot have life insurance. Since at the end, if anyone dies, the family can have Social Security. The wife can have for the husband.
I think we discussed it already, right? We discussed actually this issue already. Yeah, we discussed it. We said that the obligation of having Social Security does not make any difference when it comes to the permissibility of the transaction. If you believe it's haram, okay, and you do have the right of quitting your Social Security, are you going to quit it? Are you going to just drop it, waive it? If you do have the right. I mean, if you do have the option of not being a part of the Social Security system, are you willing to drop it? Or you want to keep it? You want to keep it, right? Because, definitely, because you want to benefit from it. And the same concept for those who have life insurance. If it is haram and you do have to pay by law certain amount for Social Security, then it's haram for you to get the compensation. Because, you do what you have to do. But the compensation that you will be receiving based on this logic is haram. So the check that your family members will be receiving after your death, after long life, inshallah, would be haram, which is definitely not the case. Anyway, that's something in you. That's a very I would say a strange or weird or isolated fatwa. I cannot blame you. I've been going with the mainstream fatwa for the last 30 years of my life. Changing from one opinion to another is not that easy. However, as a specialized student of knowledge, I cannot just hide what I know. My job is to deliver the knowledge and to share the experience with you. It's up to you. If you want to, believe it. If you want to adopt it or not, that is up to you. I'm not saying go ahead and just buy life insurance. I'm telling you that if you ask me, is life insurance halal or haram? I would say it is halal. Would you please, before you leave, take this brochure from ICNA Relief, one of the most active relief organizations in the US. They have different programs. They might knock your door one day and ask for support and for fund. They have different programs like hunger prevention and Muslim family services and women shelter all over the country, emergency financial assistance. Take a form and just read more about this organization. Whenever they ask for your support, please support ICNA Relief generously. وجزاكم الله خيرا. Is it salah time, Sheikh Muhammad? طيب, let's break now for the salah. Let's break for the salah. And if you have a question after that, I will take your questions maybe after the salah or just individual. But we need to break for the salah now. جزاكم الله خير.